City Council. It's great to have everybody here. We only have, well, I'll start with Keelan. Can you call the roll, please?
Yes, Fritz,
Here.
Hardesty,
Here.
Udaly,
Here.
Wheeler.
Here. Is anybody here from the community? Not a city employee? Okay, well, I would ordinarily read the rules, have the rules of order and decorum. I think we can suspend or disband with those for the moment. So with that,
I don't know,
Keelan,
Mayor, they look like a
could you-
lively bunch.
Well, Tom is always sort of questionable.
Yeah.
He looks like he's
Yeah.
well behaved
Watch
so
out for that
far.
guy.
Could you please call 212? Oh my gosh.
212. 212.
212. I did learn my numbers at some point.
Authorize city attorney to initiate a validation action under ORS 33-710 through -720 regarding expenditure of ratepayer funds to implement the Community Opportunities and Enhancement Program and the resolutions and ordinances creating and implementing the Community Opportunities and Enhancement Program.
Very good. So colleagues, the city's purchasing power is significant. We all know that. And we have both the opportunity and the responsibility to use public dollars to advance the public good. This is especially true with our public construction projects. The Community Opportunities and Enhancement Program, or COEP, is an important part of the strategy to bring more and better contracting opportunities to minority, women, and emerging small businesses. Over the last few years, we've made good progress updating and standardizing our policies. The outcome of that is the COEP program. We've launched the program, and we're very excited about its future. And we want to get it right, especially where we're talking about dollars whose uses are restricted. This is true of the city's two utility bureaus in particular, Environmental Services and Water, who do major construction projects and who will be the major contributors to this program and whose funds are restricted by charter. Today, the city's attorney's office is requesting council authorization to seek Multnomah County Circuit Court validation of a rubric to guide our expenditures of ratepayer funds in this program. In January, council authorized the Office of Management and Finance, the Office of Equity and Human Rights, and Prosper Portland to enter into an intergovernmental agreement to implement the COEP using 1% from each city's project hard construction costs to fund the program. Because the charter tells us how we can and can't use ratepayer funds, Procurement, Prosper Portland, and the city's attorney's office worked with our utility bureaus to create the rubric to guide the spending of rate funds in this program. That's interesting. I haven't heard the word rubric in like 15 years, and then it shows up twice within 3 paragraphs in my talking points. Just a little trivia for those of you watching. The court's early guidance and hopefully validation of the rubric, there it is again, will confirm that we can turn this into a drinking game, non-alcoholic, will confirm that our spending is in line with charter restrictions. I appreciate the hard work of everyone who helped think through this challenge and designed this, what is the word? Rubric. We have OMF Director, Tom Reinhardt, Water Bureau Director, Mike Sturr, PS Director,
It's been a
Mike
long
Jordan,
day.
Karen Moynihan, with the city's attorney's office to walk us through the need for this validation action. Tom, please take it away.
Tom, you could call
Like,
it a
take it away
framework
from
if you
him.
want.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners. My name is Tom Reinhardt, Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Portland. I'm joined today by my colleagues Mike Stewart from the Water Bureau, Michael Jordan from the Bureau of Environmental Services, and Karen Moynihan, Chief Deputy City Attorney. Today, we are requesting that Council authorize the City Attorney's Office to file a validation action proceeding to determine the legality of ratepayer fund expenditures to implement the Community Opportunities and Enhancement Program, what we refer to as the COEP. The city completed a disparity study in 2010. Based on the findings from the study, we identified gaps in contracting opportunities for women and minority contractors. This led the city to create the COEP program in 2017 as a way to intentionally address these historic disparities that have prevented equity and diversity in contracting opportunities for communities of color and women. The city is committed to changing this disparity in the construction industry. Our first citywide equity goal states, quote, We will end racial disparities within city government so there is fairness in hiring and promotions, greater opportunities in contracting, and equitable services to all residents. Today, we are not only talking about increasing equity in contracting internally, but implementing and supporting actions that will support the industry regionally and ensure a diverse workforce for future projects. The COEP intends to establish a reliable source of funding, as the mayor stated, to support diversifying the construction industry. This will be done by collecting 1% of hard construction costs on all our projects, on our large city projects in particular, and funneling it into contracting opportunities for traditionally unrepresented contractors. As the council may recall, in January of this year, the Office of Management and Finance, Office of Equity and Human Rights, and Prosper Portland entered into an intergovernmental agreement to implement Phase 1 of the COEP, which you approved. This phase will use funds from the Portland Building, the Yamhill Garage, and Washington Park projects. I want to take a moment to thank Lester Spittler, Kathy Sherrick, and everybody else who worked so hard on that effort. We believe that diverse workers and contractors will improve the services that ratepayers receive, and that by training diverse workers and extending opportunities to historically underrepresented groups, we can create long-lasting connections and share resources that will benefit the entire community. We are back today to revisit the issue raised during the January hearings with all of you and address the question, quote, how will the city guarantee that the 1% funding derived from ratepayer projects will be spent in a way that is reasonably related to providing water and sewer services? And with that, I want to hand it over to Karen.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Karen Moynihan, Chief Deputy City Attorney. As you know, in 2012, the city was sued by a group of ratepayers for the expenditure of ratepayer funds that they alleged were not authorized by the charter. Over the course of the next 5 years, the city attorney's office litigated the issue of whether a wide variety of expenditures, such as sewer funds expended on stormwater improvements at Riverside Cemetery, or water funds being used to maintain city fountains, were authorized by the Portland City Charter. One of the lessons we learned from the litigation was how important it is for council to be fully informed regarding the way that ratepayer funds are to be expended, and that council's intent in exercising its discretion, and this is important, when authorizing such expenditures be clearly reflected in the council record. Today, we are asking council to closely consider the purpose of the Community Opportunities and Enhancements Program and its implementation with the use of ratepayer funds. We will demonstrate to you that there is a particular need to increase the capacity of a trained, qualified, and diverse workforce on Water Bureau and BES construction projects that could be addressed through the COEP. Finally, we will ask you to authorize the City Attorney's Office to file a validation suit in Multnomah County Circuit Court so that the use of ratepayer funds on COEP will be reviewed in advance by the court and hopefully provide a level of assurance that the expenditures will withstand anticipated legal challenges. Water Bureau Director Mike Stuer and BES Director Michael Jordan will now explain their bureau's needs for a trained, qualified, and diverse workforce.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Stuer. I'm the director of the Portland Water Bureau. Currently, both the Water Bureau and the Bureau of Environmental Services have multi-million-dollar public improvement projects on the horizon and underway right now. Additionally, we've identified positions on our construction project where there is insufficient number of qualified contractors, including COBID certified firms. Now, COBID is Certification Office for Business Inclusion and Diversity. It's the state office that certifies minorities, small business, women-owned, veteran-owned businesses. We lack sufficient contractors available to perform in the necessary trade jobs. Our priority is to complete these projects on time and on budget. But we know that there are often not enough construction firms who have the capacity, much less the number of trained and fully qualified workers that we need. According to the 2018 Portland Metro Regional Construction Workforce Market Study, the 2016 workforce supply would fall short by more than 1,000 minorities and nearly 1,500 females, and 445 apprentices to fill the needs for all trades in the region over the next 5 years. That's the period we're in right now. To this end, the Water Bureau and the Bureau of Environmental Services support using ratepayer funds to increase capacity of diverse firms and train and retain a diverse workforce. The current workforce development and business technical assistance systems are robust and streamlined. However, they need more capacity to fully support the diversification of the construction industry. By using these existing systems, we'll create efficiencies and continue to build capacity where the city has already invested. We understand that funding pre-apprenticeship training and providing supports for pre-apprentices and early apprentices will result in people ready to go to work. We understand that providing business development to small firms will increase the pool of diverse firms who will bid. This program will ensure we have an adequate number of trained, diverse workers to complete our projects and meet our equity goals. Ratepayers deserve this level of efficiency on ratepayer projects and from our city. By fully utilizing these 1% funds, we can create the largest, most diverse construction industry possible in our city. The COEP will benefit the infrastructure bureaus and ratepayers, as well as support the city's equity goals and benefit the community. I'll turn this now over to Mike Jordan.
Thank you, Mike. Commissioners, thank you for hearing from us today. The city has a long history of attempting to be inclusive with minority and women-owned businesses in our contracts and in our construction work. This program attempts to do more than that. This program approaches changing the market in the Portland metropolitan area. We've gotten better at being able to get minority and women-owned businesses into our contracts so that they have the money that comes from that work. That's not enough. We think that we are really in the business of trying to evolve the market, both the market for contractors by allowing them and giving them the supports to grow their businesses so that they can become prime contractors and participate even further in our work. But for the first time, I think, the city is attempting now to get into working on the workforce and diversifying and growing the construction workforce. If both of those markets can be more robust, speaking selfishly as a utility, the costs of our projects will maybe not go down, but the upward pressure won't be as great. If we can expand those markets, it is in our interest, along with the community's interest. So we're very excited about the approach that's being taken, particularly with workforce. If we're going to be successful in that realm, we will have to have a consistent, steady, professional effort that does not ebb and flow with the amount of capital dollars we're spending from project to project. It will need to be that kind of an effort. So I can tell you both utilities are very supportive of the approach and are ready to be involved in the project. So thank you.
Thank you.
So to be clear, because there's been some understandable confusion over this in the past year or so, we have nearly $1 million that's ready to be granted through the Prosper Portland granting process that is non-ratepayer funds, and that is still on track. So I want to make sure that if there are questions forming in council members' heads, I want to address that. This is intended to win a validation for the rest of the funds that will be eligible for this program. So the funding is ready to be deployed through phase one of the COEP. And we need to address the ratepayer funds. In order to do that, as we have said, staff devised a rubric. It's attached as Exhibit A to the resolution. It frames the various ways that ratepayer funds may be used. And now, without further explanation or context, we want Karen to go through that rubric with you.
That's okay. Yeah, and I'm going to ask Ty Kovacs to come up to help me out with this a little bit. Mayor, I had to look the word rubric up. I had to look the word rubric up.
I feel like you're trying to bring the word rubric back. That's what I think is going on.
Didn't
You're
come from
making
me.
it cool.
And I want to know how a rubric is different from a matrix. I'm just kidding.
That was not in the definition.
We'll get back to you. We'll get back to you, Commissioner.
Thanks very much. And so, first of all,
I just want to thank my colleagues for taking something that could be really boring and actually making it fun. Thank you.
That's what we're here for, Mayor.
Sorry, Karen, I interrupted.
no, that's okay. Thank you. First, I'd like to bring up Ty Kovacs. Oh, Ty's here. He's the
Hey, Tom.
Ty Tice, the Water Bureau's Director of Maintenance and Construction, and he's been working within the Water Bureau on apprenticeship programs for quite some time. So he's going to jump in a couple of spots and give some real-life examples here.
So can I just ask the question, Mayor? I know you all worked really hard to do this very detailed presentation, but you're asking us just to give the attorneys the authority to find out if we can do what we've already voted to do. Is that right?
Yes, and additionally, to let me go to the circuit court and have them look at this specific rubric and say, and it's really, it's a great question, because we're going to ask the court to say, look at this, we have all of these columns, we have an X and a Y axis, we want to make sure, we believe that any project that falls anywhere on this rubric is consistent with the Portland City Charter. Now, what we may end up with is the circuit court saying, yes on 1, 2, and 4, not on these. And so we will either get full approval, or we'll get guidance, or the court could come back and say, you can't spend ratepayer funds on COEP projects, period. And that I don't anticipate, because we are drawing a direct nexus between these expenditures and the relationship with water and sewer services.
And Commissioner, if I could address what I think is underlying at least part of your question, we understand the value of your time, and we wouldn't be here if we hadn't learned from the past that it's important to walk through this with the council and have all this on the record, that this was fully understood, correct?
Correct,
Karen,
and
is that-
Commissioner
yeah,
Fritz
please.
was actually instrumental in the Riverside Cemetery matter, because she provided testimony and the court cited to that.
And because the question is, to what extent does the council have the discretion per the charter to spend ratepayer dollars? So if we have explained why there is that nexus, and in particular, as we go, we do need to go through this rubric, so it's then all in the record, so that if it's challenged in the future, the attorneys can say, yes, the council heard this, agreed that this is our rationale. And that means that you and I don't have to read the entire thing in our closing remarks. But I am quite proud of myself for quite inadvertently giving the rationale for why we prevailed on Riverview Cemetery.
Well, thank you very much, because I was just wondering if we had met before, because we have all had this conversation ad nausea. So
Crossing the legal I's and
I
dotting the T's.
was clear that there
Good
was a
work.
purpose to which I was unaware. Please continue. Thank you very much for entertaining my question.
Thank you, and I'm not going to walk through every single item. We're just going to give you some examples. You'll notice that on the X-axis is the water and sewer activities that we are going to be putting forth to the court. And on the Y-axis, we have the different types of activities that the COEP program will be funding for workforce and individual training. So I'm going to just walk through one of each category. If you look at 1A to start with, the expenditure on the Y-axis is for business technical assistance, and the activity is specific to a Water Bureau project or service. And so one example of this type of activity would be a service provider connecting with a Washington Park Reservoir subcontractor who needs support with bookkeeping practices. The service provider would perhaps offer 5 hours of one-on-one training to that subcontractor and refer the subcontractor to a bookkeeping program for additional services. If you look at 1E, the expenditures for business technical assistance, but this activity supports a BES environmental obligations. And as you know, BES has many obligations that were considered to be in compliance with the Portland City Charter, such as complying with the MS4 stormwater permit. So an example here would be a service provider supporting a landscaping business that wants to expand into stormwater management by maintaining bioswales throughout the city. Again, these are just examples. The service provider might help the business assess its cash flow and personnel policies in order to hire additional staff for this work, thereby growing that business. If you look at 2C, the expenditures for outreach and recruitment of diverse workers, and the activity is specific to a BES project or service. An example here would be a service provider recruiting apprentices from their prior pre-apprentice training programs to work on an active BES project that might need female apprentices, or they could provide they could recruit registered apprentices to work on an active BES project. Just a couple more. If you look at 3D, the expenditures for workforce training, including pre-apprenticeship training, and the activity increases diverse workforce supply for BES projects or services. The service provider might offer a pre-apprenticeship training program, and the curriculum could include site visits to an active BES project or learning city rules or regulations for environmental protections and exposure to trades most common for BES projects. Finally, if you look at 4B, the expenditures for retention of diverse workers, and the activity is increases diverse workforce supply for Water Bureau projects or service. In this instance, a service provider could develop a mentorship program to retain apprentices in the plumbing trade. Now, these examples show a broad range of activities that could be performed that support the success of water and sewer projects. At this point, I'm going to ask Ty Kovach from the Water Bureau to give a couple of examples of how the rubric could be implemented on Water Bureau projects. That will conclude our presentation, but I want to point out that today we also have with us Prosper Portland's General Counsel, Allison Keene, Assistant General Counsel, John Wasserman, and Shay Flattery Bettine, the Economic Development Manager at Prosper, who can also help us answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Turn it on. I should know that. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Ty Kovach from the Portland Water Bureau, and we've been having a number of brainstorming sessions around the rubric that Karen has developed. And you know, broadly, I think the program, there's a lot of opportunities for us to find the nexus between supporting the infrastructure in our community to help women and minorities join the workforces that support our projects. So I think those ones are pretty clear, and Karen has touched base on those. But in the Water Bureau, this is an endeavor that we have been pursuing for many years. Most notably, probably for you, is through our apprenticeship program, which is one of the only public apprenticeships in the state, where we train utility workers and water operations mechanics through a BOLI sanctioned apprenticeship program that's become a really successful source of helping our workforce in the Water Bureau diversify, at least as it relates to our field staff. One of the areas that we have been challenged in that regard is in the pursuit of bringing women into the construction field. And there's in our community, there's about 4% of the construction field is women who are interested in that. And so when we do a recruitment, we have found many times that we're competing with the other construction entities, PGE, Northwest Natural, the county, everybody who is in that space is pursuing the same relative handfuls of women who are in those programs. And so we had one recruitment a few years ago where we offered the job to 7 different women and we got one. So that is an indicator of part of a challenge. And so we've linked up with organizations like Oregon Tradeswomen. And it's been a really good partnership, and they have a great pre-apprenticeship program that they do where they put women through a variety of trainings, and it's a really great foundation, and they introduce them to a variety of trades. But where they have trouble competing is when we do the recruitment and you use the civil service process and they're competing against people who have construction experience that's beyond the foundational kind of trainings that you get in the Oregon Tradeswomen. So an initiative that the Water Bureau is bringing forward, hopefully in this budget cycle, will be a request for you guys to consider for what will be 5 maintenance workers that the Water Bureau will employ on a 1-year basis, where people from programs like Oregon Tradeswomen and others that are in targeted areas that we're pursuing will come in and work for us for a year. And in that year, they'll gain a commercial driver's license. They'll get real-world experience working side by side with our crews, learning about the water system in the only, we're the best place to learn about the water system in the state of Oregon. And they get 1 year of real-world experience. And what that does for them is make them very marketable in the construction universe. It makes them compete really strongly when we do our recruitment for our apprenticeship programs, and gives us the opportunity to then access those people more often, because when it comes down to us competing for them, they've worked with us, we've built a relationship with them, and they're going to be more inclined to choose us over our competitors. So this notion, this model that I'm talking about is something that we're doing anyway, and we're doing it on a relatively small scale, but I think it's scalable. I think it's something that we could use the support from these outside entities. You know, if our target audience was women, the Oregon tradeswomen probably could use resources that come from the program that we're here today to discuss to support those women who are learning in that opportunity that they're going through, making sure that they can have the best opportunity to be successful. And at the end of the year, when they've had that experience and their marketability is better, those organizations have those connections to those potential employers. And even if the Water Bureau doesn't end up hiring the individuals who come through that, we've been successful if they've found a place to land. While they're working here, they can apply for other bureaus' jobs on internal recruitments and those kind of things. So that's an idea, a concept that I think we could really actually flesh out over the coming months and years with a program that has support like this that's available. A second thing really quickly that I'd just like to mention is a number of us in the Water Bureau went through a year-long results-based accountability equity program that was really an insightful thing. And part of that process, we worked on developing concepts and ideas that could be implemented in the pursuit of equity in our organizations. And one of those is on the professional side of the Water Bureau, where we have people who require certifications and who require certain kinds of experiences. There's built-in barriers in the system to getting people of color and women in particular to engineering type jobs and other science and technology oriented positions. We have in our apprenticeship program, for example, recruited a bunch of really quality people who are now advancing into other positions in the organization, but there's kind of a ceiling for them at the moment. If there was an opportunity to provide those people the education that they would need to become qualified for those internal positions, we could begin to grow our own, because again, the Water Bureau, when they're trying to hire an engineer, is competing with CH2M Hill for the very limited universe of women and people of color who might be interested in that field. We have people who are building the system on the ground right now who are very intelligent, who have every capability of becoming qualified to do those design functions and to do those other kinds of roles, but they lack the education for it. So if the Water Bureau could concurrently gain the benefit of those people by employing them, while also having a program that could help put them through the educational components that they need to do CAD or do engineering, it's an opportunity, I think, that really could be a model that a lot of bureaus in the city could employ. So those are just a couple of ideas that we've had in discussing routes by which we could make these resources utility specific, and I'm sure more will come out of it.
Ty, what's the benefit to the Water Bureau of having a more diverse workforce?
I think that has sort of been a broad city goal for a number of times. The different perspectives that people bring to the table radically enhance the quality of our work. It enhances the value of the communication between people. It helps our folks set the tone and lead in the community on the concepts of equity and the concepts of helping overcome some of the white male-dominated universe that's happened in history. And I think it's the responsibility of government to lead in that way. So that's one benefit for the workforce. Obviously, the more ideas and the more angles of attack we have on the different problems that we are pursuing, I think the better the outcomes we have and the better the quality and more well thought out they are when we go to implement them for the broader community.
Thank you.
Before we move to our extensive public testimony, Karen, it's my understanding we need to move an amended resolution.
Yes, it's an amended resolution,
It was
yes.
in the Tuesday memo, but I
was.
believe I have to entertain a motion for the amended
I
resolution.
move to adopt the amended
We
resolution.
have a motion from Commissioner Daly, thank you. A second from Commissioner Hardesty, thank you. Please call the roll on the amended resolution.
Fritz.
Aye.
Hardesty. Aye. Daly.
Aye.
Wheeler.
It just changed one of the whereases. Aye. The amended resolution is now under consideration. And public testimony.
No one signed up.
Shockaroo. Please call the roll.
Fritz.
So this is really important. Thank you very much for your work. Thank you, especially Karen, having been a veteran of many of these legal battles and making sure that we get it right. I appreciated what Ty Kovacs just said in terms of what's the benefit for the Water Bureau in having a more diverse workforce. You know, I would imagine we're one of the few water bureaus in the country that has a chief engineer who is a woman. And we know from our experiences on the council that when you have different kinds of people who think different kinds of way, you tend to get to better outcomes. In particular, many of our Water Bureau staff that are working, they work in the field. And so they're going to be in contact with our community members. They need to be able to communicate with our community members. And community members need to be able to relate to them as people like everybody else. And so I think it's really important. I know it's really important that our crews are reflective of our community, not only because of the good jobs that provides and the fact that we have both city and state and federal equity goals, but also because it is operationally better for the Water Bureau and, of course, for the environmental services as well, to have the kind of workforce that has multiple different capacities, including language capacities as well as various others. And so I appreciate the documentation. As I mentioned, I will not read it into the record. And we know that this is really important because if the council has made a considered decision on moving forward with a program like this and is able to document why we're making that decision, then it's highly likely to stand up in court, and we appreciate that. Aye.
Hardesty.
I am always thrilled when we're proactively seeking a legal opinion. This is something, of course, that's near and dear to my heart because, which has been, it seems, our theme today, keeping our promise. When we talk about who has benefit of these contract dollars and who doesn't, and how do we ensure that as we move forward that we are actually growing the workforce that will have the opportunity to work on these projects. This is absolutely the right proactive move for us to take, and how wonderful that we're actually asking for an opinion before we get sued, because, you know, people like to sue us for some odd reason. But this is going to be good work. I'm thrilled to see the commitment to actually moving forward on this work, and I'm very proud to hear directors say this matters. This matters personally, it matters professionally, and it matters for the city of Portland. I vote aye.
Daly.
Well, colleagues, staff, I am thrilled to share with you that a rubric is a matrix, but not every I don't know the plural of matrix. Matrices are a rubric. But joking aside, it's been a long week. This is great and necessary work. I really appreciated the response to Commissioner Commissioner Fritz's question. And thank you for your caution and your diligence. I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Well, I want to thank all of the city bureaus for working on this because it is important. And all joking aside, after a long day, and we can poke a lot of fun at this. At the end of the day, is it a rubric? Is it a matrix? I still think of it as a chart. But the important thing is what we're seeking here is consistency in our approach and making sure that the use of ratepayer funds in particular comports with the appropriate legal definitions of how those dollars need to be spent. And with this guidance, of course, early guidance, we hope that the chart will be validated, confirming that our spending will actually be in alignment with the city's charter. And I have great confidence, based on the great work you're all doing, that that will be the case. So thank you for your hard work. Sorry it came at the end of a very long day. We should have a better way of celebrating this. But we'll just celebrate by giving you what you need to get going on it. I vote aye. The amended resolution is adopted. Thank you, and we are adjourned.
Mayor, I just want to point out